They mocked him, shoved him, and thought he was just an old janitor. But when he finally looked up, his calm eyes revealed a hidden past that would change everything. Leaving them, the taunts echoed, sharp and cruel, as they mocked his slow, deliberate pace. Their chests puffed out, they jostled him, a casual display of their dominance. But a mere 5 minutes later, those very same teenagers were scrambling off the cold linoleum, murmuring, "Our apologies." The school corridor, usually a chaotic symphony of youthful energy, clung to the scent of industrial cleaner and forgotten dust. Stains marred the ancient floor tiles, each mark a silent testament to countless hurried footsteps, to eyes that never truly saw the quiet dedication of the man who preserved this space. Walter Jenkins, known affectionately as Wally to no one in particular, guided his mop along the worn locker bases. His movements were unhurried, a rhythm born of countless hours, his back a gentle curve from years of physical toil. Time, it seemed, had little hold on Wally. He moved with a quiet, almost invisible grace. Post-lunch students surged past him, a boisterous tide of laughter and crumpled snack wrappers flung carelessly. A soccer ball ricocheted dangerously close to his leg. Did he flinch? Not a muscle. He simply continued his methodical work. "Move it, Grandpa," a voice sneered, a shoulder brushing him with deliberate rudeness. Wally merely offered a soft nod, stepping aside, his mop gliding into the next row. Above, the old fluorescent lights hummed a weary tune, one flickering erratically. Then, from the hallway's far end, a trio emerged. Late teens, swaggering school hoodies slung half off their arrogant shoulders. Mike, the self-appointed king, strutted as if the building were his personal domain. Kevin, his sidekick, leaned against the lockers, gum smacking loudly. And then there was Leo, the quiet shadow, whose laughter was always a beat too late, a desperate plea for belonging. Wally didn't even glance up. He didn't have to. He could feel their eyes on him, a predatory weight. Mike's smirk widened. "Hey, slowpoke, you still scrubbing the same spot from last week?" Kevin snorted. "Nah, bro, he's training for the Olympics. Speed mop category." Their laughter exploded, harsh and derisive. Wally kept his rhythm, but as he turned toward his mop bucket, a sneaker slammed into it. Murky water sloshed across the floor. Wally's hands moved with surprising speed, catching the bucket before it crashed. For the first time, he lifted his gaze. His eyes met Mike's, calm, intensely focused, utterly devoid of anger, just still. A long, silent second stretched between them. Then, Mike deliberately bumped Wally's shoulder as he sauntered past. "Oops, my bad, old man," Kevin guffawed. Leo, however, remained silent. Wally straightened, wiping his damp palms on his work pants. He reached for the mop, then paused. A faint, faded tattoo peeked from beneath his sleeve, an eagle clutching arrows, barely visible. He slowly adjusted his sleeve, then resumed mopping. Behind him, the boys whispered, plotting their next cruel joke for fifth period. They'd make the janitor dance, they vowed. But Wally already knew. People like him always sensed what was coming, and they never, ever forgot how to respond. The final bell before fifth period shrieked through the walls. Lockers clanged open and shut like falling dominoes. Students surged and receded, a cacophony of voices, swelling, and then fading into that peculiar school silence, where echoes danced and time seemed to stretch. Wally moved through the quiet corridor as always, broom in one hand, dustpan hooked to his belt, a spray bottle dangling from his hip. The fluorescent lights still buzzed overhead, a flickering heartbeat. He paused beneath it, reached up and with a soft tap adjusted the fixture. The lights steadied. Small things mattered to Wally. Precision, timing, observation. Down the hallway, the trio reappeared. Mike clapped his hands. A sharp, loud sound. "Yo, Mr. Clean's back at it." Kevin chuckled, jogging to catch up. "Didn't we tell you to mop faster? Got molasses in those boots or what?" Leo, though, lingered behind this time. Something about Wally's eyes from earlier had unsettled him. He said nothing, just leaned against the locker, nervously chewing on his sleeve. Wally knelt by the baseboards, meticulously scraping away a hardened wad of gum with a small metal tool. He didn't acknowledge them, Mike walked closer, invading his space again. Hey, he snapped, towering over him. I'm talking to you, Grandpa. Slowly, Wally rose, dust in his palm, a small brush tucked in one hand. He looked Mike directly in the eye, calm, patient, as if he'd been waiting his entire life for this very moment. Step back, he said softly. Kevin burst into laughter. Whoa! Step back, bro. Is this a cartoon? Wally didn't blink. You boys have one chance to walk away. Just one. Mike grinned, then shoved him, two hands to the chest. It wasn't a hard push, but it was enough to test the boundary. Wally took a single step back, his boots scuffing the tile. The broom clattered from his hand, spinning across the floor. Leo flinched at the sound. Something about it felt wrong, too deliberate. Mike stepped forward again, arms up, mocking a military stance. Sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. Wally exhaled slowly, as if releasing a long-held memory. Then Mike swung. A lazy, wide punch, born of arrogance, not skill. The kind of hit that only connects in video games or locker room daydreams. Wally moved, not fast, not flashy, but profoundly efficient. His left hand intercepted Mike's wrist mid-air, twisting gently, not to inflict pain, but to halt the blow. He guided Mike's arm down with a practiced control born of thousands of repetitions. Mike found himself off balance, pressed lightly against a locker, his breath shallow with confusion. What the? Wally leaned close to his ear. Control is strength, not force. Kevin charged in, yelling, arms wide, intent on playing the hero, but Wally turned slightly, stepped into Kevin's path, and dropped low. One swift pivot, a sidestep. Kevin's own momentum carried him forward, straight into a trash bin. Wally didn't flinch, didn't gloat. He simply turned to face Leo. The boy stood frozen, hands up, eyes wide, breath shaky. I'm good, Leo mumbled. I'm good, man. Wally stared at him for a long beat, then gave a single nod. By now, a small crowd had gathered at the far end of the hallway. Students stood frozen mid-walk, books clutched, jaws slack. Mike pushed off the locker, turning back, fists clenched. What the hell, old man? You want to fight? Wally picked up his broom, holding it upright like a staff. Not threatening, just present. You wouldn't last 10 seconds, he said quietly. Mike hesitated. He looked into Wally's face, and for the first time, noticed the deep creases weren't from age. They were from weather. From where? From war. And then he saw it. The eagle tattoo, clearer now, etched in ink above a series of numbers, just below the rolled sleeve of that faded work shirt. Wally gently tipped the broom to the floor. You boys think respect is earned by shouting louder, by swinging firm. But there's a difference between fear and discipline. You don't want to live long in either, unless you know the difference. He pointed to a spot near the lockers. Stand there, all three of you. Mike hesitated. Kevin was still rubbing his knee. Leo walked over silently, standing exactly where Wally pointed. Mike followed slowly, utterly bewildered. Kevin, limping, joined them last. Wally turned, walking toward the front of the hallway, then spun back around with military precision. Hands behind your backs, heels together, eyes forward. It happened so fast, so sharply, that all three obeyed without thought. They stood there, lined up like recruits, and for the first time, all day the hallway was dead silent. The old janitor, with his scuffed boots and mop, now stood taller than anyone in the building. Every student watching suddenly wondered the same thing. Who is this man? Wally stood before them, the broom now resting lightly in his left hand, its handle upright like a staff passed down through generations. His shoulders had straightened. The weariness that once seemed to weigh down his back was gone. All eyes were on him. Students lining both ends of the hallway didn't dare speak. Phones stayed in pockets. No one wanted to miss a single second. Wally's voice broke the silence. Not loud, not angry, just firm, measured, like a drill sergeant whispering orders after a battle. Tell me what respect means. The boys didn't answer. He took a slow step forward. I asked you a question. What does respect mean? Kevin glanced at Mike. Leo looked down. Wally pointed his broom handle at the floor. Respect is not about fear. Not about strength, not about being loud. It's how you treat people when you think no one's watching. He stepped closer to Mike. You shoved me twice because you thought I was slow and weak. Mike swallowed, barely nodding. Wally's gaze didn't leave him. And in your mind, that gave you permission. Silence. I trained boys like you once, he said, stepping back. They were bigger, louder, meaner, but after 3 weeks they stood straighter, spoke softer, because they learned. His voice dropped lower. Respect starts where ego ends. He turned to Leo. You knew it was wrong, but you followed anyway. Why? Leo's voice barely surfaced. I didn't want to be next. Wally nodded slowly. Fair. But remember this. Cowards follow louder cowards. Leaders don't need to yell. He paused, sweeping the handle across all three of them like a sword. You thought I was just a janitor. He stepped back and gently laid the broom on the floor. I was 22 when I taught my first combat class. 40 soldiers, half older than me. We trained in silence. We respected the chain of command, not because we feared it, but because when chaos comes, you follow the quietest voice. That's the one who sees clearly. Kevin blinked. Wait, you were military? Wally didn't answer. He didn't need to. The hallway was still. His silence was louder than any confirmation. From the crowd, a teacher appeared. Mr. Davison, the history teacher, watching with his arms crossed, a small smile tugging at his face. He knew, had known for years, but Wally never brought it up. Wally faced the boys again. Here's your assignment, he said plainly. You've uncleaned this hallway. Now together, every inch, no noise, no arguing. You'll return the supplies, stack the bins, and sweep again. Mike opened his mouth to protest. Wally raised one brow. Mike closed it. Kevin nodded slowly. Leo had already stepped forward, reaching for the mop. But Wally wasn't done. He pointed to the spot where the water bucket had been kicked earlier. You start there, and when you finish, each of you will look the next person you meet in the eye and say, "Good afternoon."